Board of Alders Public Notice, New Haven, the Joint Community Development and Health and Human Services Committee of New Haven. If everyone can please be on mute, that'd be great. It's a bit of a distraction. Restart. Sorry about that. The Joint Community Development, Health and Human Services Committee of New Haven Board of Alders will meet Wednesday, April 21st, 2021 at 7 p.m. via video conference. Please click the URL to join, which is posted on the public notice. You may also join by audio by dialing 312-626-6799 or 301-715-8592 with the webinar code that is also posted on the public notice. And the password is also provided on the public notice. To receive an overview on and hear about the city activities proposals related to Legislative Matter 2021-0170, the order of the Board of Alders, City of New Haven, approving the City of New Haven's 2021-22 Annual Action Plan Statement of Activities and Use of Community Development Block Grant, Home Investment Partnership, Housing Opportunities for Persons with AIDS, and Emergency Solutions Grants. Funds to be submitted to the Department of Housing and Urban Development for the Federal Financial Assistance Program for Planning and Community Development Activities under the provisions of Title I of Housing and Community Development Act 1974 as amended. The Cranston-Gonzalez National Affordable Housing Act of 1990 as amended. The McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act of 2000 as amended. The Homeless Emergency Assistance and Rapid Transition to Housing Act of 2009, and the AIDS Housing Opportunity Act, hereafter referred to as Housing and Community Development Program Acts, and for the activities to be funded by program income and or reprogramming funds from prior grant years. This file is available in the office of the City Clerk, 200 Orange Street, room 202, New Haven, per the Honorable Brian Wingate and Honorable Darrell J. Brackeen Jr., co-chairs attest, Honorable Michael B. Smart, City Town Clerk. For disability-related accommodation, please call 203-946-7651 voice or 203-946-8582 prior to the meeting. The public can view the meeting of the Board of Alders YouTube page just by simply typing in New Haven Board of Alders. If you wish to present testimony at tonight's meeting, you were asked to register in advance, but if you have not done so, you can still do so by emailing at publictestimony@newhavenct.gov. At this time, we will begin with introductions of members of the committee, starting with my honorable co-chair.
Brian Gate, Ward 29, Community Development Chair.
Frank Douglas, Ward 2, Community Development.
Alder
Carmen
Hurt.
Rodriguez, Ward 6, sorry, Alder Hurt. Carmen Rodriguez, Ward 6, my apologies.
Alder Ron Hurt, Vice Chair, Health and Human Services.
Third officer.
Alder Sal DeCola, Ward 18, Community Development.
Alder Sabin.
Alder Eli Sabin, Ward 1, Health and Human Services.
Alder Winter.
Alder Stephen Winter, Ward 21, Health and Human Services.
Alder Edwards.
Alder Kim Edwards, Ward 19, Community Development.
And I believe these are colleagues that have joined us. If not, they can correct me. I see Alder Rosa Ferraro Santana and our president, Alder Walker Myers, joining us on tonight. I'm looking at the participants here. All right, our friends from the Office of Management and Budget are here. Okay, so as we have done for an extremely long time, this is the time of year for the community block grant development process. As the co-chair of this process, along with my co-chair Alder Wingate, this is actually, if this is your first time in this process, please raise your hand. Any alders, is this your first time? Good. Okay. So you know how we're going to run this. We are going to go to the level 4 protocol that you probably received in your emails many years ago. And we hope that you're able to refer to it, in which over the next few days and weeks, we'll be hearing from a myriad of organizations who have been deemed worthy of this process and who have gone through a lot to get to this point. So this is a very important season in our city to ensure that federal funds that have been granted and will be granted are indeed disseminated in the proper manner. On tonight, our special guest and leader of this process for many, many decades at this point, Mr. Ron Gizzi, I will turn it over to you.
Hi, everyone. Ron Gizzi from the Office of Management and Budget, 219 Aramo Terrace, Hamden, Connecticut. Okay, so as Alder Burkeen said, I think everybody has been exposed to this process a few times. So I'll just kind of go through what the consolidated plan process is. So the consolidated plan process was created in 1995. And what that did is combine the CDBG, ESG, home, and HOPWA grants that the city receives into one consolidated plan process. The recent CARES Act funding, the HUD CARES Act funding, this is also part of the consolidated plan funding. So with the consolidated plan, it requires a 5-year plan be submitted every 5 years, obviously. And within that 5-year plan, we also have an annual action plan. So the annual action plan addresses the yearly priorities of the city, and the 5-year plan is the city's 5-year plan for the priorities for housing and non-housing community development needs. So we just completed our 5th 5-year plan, and we're entering into the 2nd year of that plan now. So that's what we're working on now. So some of the categories, some of the eligible categories under CDBG, we can do acquisition of property, disposition, public facility improvements, demolition, public services, interim assistance, relocation, rehab, construction, many categories. And then within those categories, there are also subcategories, which HUD calls matrix codes. And those are just more specific. So under public service, there's youth programs, elderly programs, programs for disabled, and then health services, and many others. Under the HOPWA program, their eligible categories under HOPWA are case management, rental, office space rental, that would be considered admin, support services, street outreach, tenant-based rental assistance, and short-term mortgage and rent utility assistance. Some of the categories under emergency solutions grants are case management, operation of shelters, emergency shelter, supportive services, street outreach, and homeless prevention and rapid rehousing. And then we also have home activities. So under home, the categories are housing development, new construction, down payment assistance, and we can also do shelter under home as well. Okay, so each of these grants now, HUD requires that we meet one of 3 national objectives. So the benefit has to be a low moderate income benefit to persons or households, the elimination of slums or blight, and urgent need, which with the pandemic, that would be considered an urgent need, which we don't really use that category much. It's rarely used, but this year we did use that category. In all the beneficiaries, it must be measurable outcomes for the beneficiary. So that's both nonprofit agencies and the city also must demonstrate that beneficiaries. So we received the applications on February 4th. Everything was online this year. We posted the applications on the city's website. There were Word documents for agencies to download and fill out and then email back to us. I think it worked out pretty well. We had one minor issue, but it worked out well. So all the applications right now, we do have them saved electronically. If anybody would like to review an individual application, I can get those to you. So we did the same process, except everything electronically now. So the applications were due February 4th. So management and budget, we did a review process. The first thing we did was a completeness check to confirm that all the questions were answered and all the supporting documentation was submitted. So we do a financial review, look at the budgets, look at their leverage funding, their agencies, the 990s, and their audits. So once that's done, then we move on to an eligibility check. So we review the applications to make sure they're eligible. And then we summarize everything and put a description on everything. And that's the spreadsheet that the alders have now. And then we submit the mayor's recommendations to the alders. And then the final step is working with the committee to finalize funding recommendations and finalize the annual plan. So within each of the grants, there are funding caps. In CDBG, there's a 15% max on public service, so we can't give more than 15% to public service agencies. The planning administration cap is 20%, and then the balance would go to hardware. There's really no funding cap on hardware. If the city decided to, we can actually budget everything in hardware, but public service funds are very sought after. So within ESG, there's a 7.5% max for admin, and then 60% of the funds should be used for shelter and 40% should be used for prevention. And then under home, we have a 10% admin cap. For CHODO, which are for new construction of housing, there's a 15% minimum for that, and then the balance would be for housing development. And then for HOPWA, we just have a 3% max for admin. So when the committee receives all the testimony and decides to make their decisions, there's certain rules for amendments. So some of the things, so hardware funds, we can't use hardware funds for public service or planning and admin, but public service funds could be transferred to hardware. And the same thing, public service cannot be used to supplement admin funds, and planning admin funds can't be moved to public service either. So all amendments, when you're submitting an amendment, you have to identify a source. So you're increasing one agency and decreasing another. And there is a timeliness requirement. So when you're making your funding recommendation, just be aware that funding should be spent within the year. So the funding, we do have the final allocations, and that's in the documents that we sent you earlier today. So for CDBG, we had a slight decrease, only $1,600. Home, we actually got almost a $20,000 increase. HOPWA was an increase of almost 28,000, and we had a decrease of ESG funds of about 5,700. So overall, with all 4 grants, we actually received a $40,000 increase this year. So some of the changes that we made this year due to COVID, that it's all notifications were through email. So we had email posting on the city's website and newspaper legal notices. So we created an email, a designated email, conplanapp@newhavenct.gov for any questions. And the usual meeting that we have, the informational meeting in person, we replaced that with a webinar. And that was held on January 5th. And it was well attended. We had about 80 or 90 people attend. And that was pretty well received as well. And then the applications were made available for download on the city's website. And again, everyone was notified by email that those were available. And we did separate the applications by funding source and then by category to make it a little bit easier, less confusing for people. The applications were due back on February 4th. We did offer agencies the opportunity to drop off applications in person by appointment, but everything was emailed in. We were able to get everybody to email them in. And some of the things we're trying to explore some grant management software, which would allow us to receive the applications through an online portal, which would make it easier for agencies as well, instead of emailing that in. And one of the other things we did too was update our citizen participation plan to include the use of virtual meetings. So again, the timeliness requirement, that is another important requirement. And again, I do have the letters of support. We can get you that information. And if there's any questions on this part, then let me know.
Chair, I don't see any hands raised for any questions on this particular presentation.
I got one.
I see all the ducks.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Gizzi, can you give us a round figure of how many applicants do we have this year?
That was listed in the book that we sent you. I don't know if maybe Allison has that information right there. Do you have that handy, Allison?
Yes, I do. So you wanted to know the number of new applicants for this year?
Yes.
Okay.
And if you can state your name and address for the record, that'd be great. Thank
Oh,
you.
I'm sorry. Allison Champlin, Hamden, Connecticut, 932 Dunbar Hill Road. So for the number of new applicants we had this year for CDBG hardware, we had 8, and we funded out of those 8, 6. For CDBG public service or software, we had a total of 6 new applications and we funded 6. And for ESG and HOPWA, we had no new applicants for this year. So we had a small increase in applications compared to last year. It seemed many of the new applicants from last year did not reapply this year if they were relatively new to the process.
Thank you. And Ron, also, you said you had there was a you had a problem with one of the applicants. Can you name that for us, please?
One of the agencies, they sent the email in, we didn't receive it. Then they sent another email asking if we did receive the original email, which we didn't, but then we worked it out and they were able to submit and they were included in the package. One of the other things I did want to mention, we didn't reject any applications this year, but there was one applicant, they were applying under the new construction, CDBG new construction, but there are very specific rules for new construction, and that agency didn't qualify as a community-based development organization, so they were not included in the package.
Can you name that entity, please?
Yeah, that was Neighborhood Housing Services.
All right.
So in
Thank
the
you.
past,
Thank you,
they've
Mr.
applied-
Chair. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ron.
You're welcome.
Are there any more questions for Mr. Ron Gizzi? I'm trying to scan to see hands or chair.
All right, so here's the big question. So we are aware of the American Rescue Plan funding that has been provided or being applied for by the city. I'm not sure which. Would there happen to be any funding that might come to this committee in the form of CDBG funding by any chance?
I don't think it's CDBG funding. Right now, it's home funding. We did get a notification that we received approximately 4.8 million. I haven't received any details on it yet, just that we were awarded approximately 4.8 million, and the funding is available through, I believe it's 2030. So we do have quite a bit of time to spend that money. But again,
Okay.
more details will be forthcoming on that.
Great. The reason why I raised this, as kind of like last year, folks, we did have to have some emergency meetings to accept the COVID-related CDBG. I just want to be clear that this is different. Okay, this is our standard CDBG process, but this committee should absolutely be prepared to help the administration accept as much money as we can. Exactly. So we have to schedule a meeting. I just want to everyone just kind of be on notice that it might it can't be, obviously we'll give 5-day notice, obviously, but just to be prepared, just in case something comes down the pipe. And you should know that is separate from this process. Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair.
You're welcome. So I see no more hands raised in reference to Mr. Gizzi presentation. No questions. Chair, I turn it back over to you.
Okay, thank you. We will now get ready for the city services portion of this meeting.
So this part, if I can testify
Sure.
about, I would testify about all the admin activities that the city is requesting right now, if that's okay.
Floor is yours.
Okay, so there are, each funding source does have an admin portion, which the city uses pretty much for staff to cover everything that's involved with the plan. We do have some non-personnel items included in there, which a lot of it is advertising, a lot of it is printing. We do have a couple consultants to help us with reporting, and especially reporting on the HMIS system. We have some for office supplies and some for mileage reimbursement. So the majority of the funding is, well, there's a couple different sections. So well, I'll just talk about the whole process, the whole admin portion altogether, because it all is intertwined, even though it is separated out by department. So basically, with the admin funding, we have certain regulatory requirements that have to be met. So of that is environmental reviews, and that includes all HUD-funded projects. And with that, there's advertising in there as well, and there's the request for release of funds, and there's public comments that also need to be received with that funding. So that person up in city plan is doing that. And they're also reviewing projects for historical significance. That's another HUD requirement. And we're performing neighborhood planning activities as well. So other functions of the admin is preparation of the annual plan, 5-year plan, and the CAPER, which is the reporting part of it. So the action plan is what we're planning to do. The CAPER is actually what we've done. So that's all part of it. We have a couple people over in our accounting department, and they're doing some administrative support, processing payments, reviewing payments, preparing POs, drawing down funds, collecting documents for execution of agreements with the nonprofit agencies, and just coordinating other components of the consolidated plan process. We do provide a lot of technical support to agencies and city departments, city administration, and the alders. Some of the other things we're doing is the application process, reviewing the applications, again, public notices, public meetings, determination of project eligibility. And then a very important part is oversight and compliance with the federal regulations. We also every year do programmatic and financial monitorings of all grant recipients, which is actually, that has been suspended due to COVID. And the other part of it too is reporting everything on HUD's online reporting system, which is called the Integrated Disbursement and Information System, which is called IDIS. We are also responsible for any federal findings when HUD comes down to monitor us. So maintaining all that documentation and preparing related HUD documents. We do an analysis of impediments to fair housing and a citizen participation plan, which we just recently updated to include changes with COVID to allow for virtual meetings. And we're overseeing compliance with federal regulations and standards of care. And it covers the cost of program monitoring and all other allowable administrative costs. And that's a lot of that's for the home program as well. And then just the non-personnel items that I mentioned before. And without this staff, the city would not be able to meet all the HUD requirements that go along with this funding.
Any questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to call folks up by department as we go along here. So I see we have present, let's start with CSA. So everyone associated with CSA, Elderly Services, the Homeless Director. And as you all come on, if you all can just state your name and addresses for the record, and you can choose who goes first.
Hi, good evening, members of the committee, joint committee. Mehul Dalal, Community Service Administrator, 115 Linden Street, New Haven.
I'm Velma George, Coordinator for Homelessness, City of New Haven, 347 Mill Rock Road, Hamden.
Migdalia Castro, Director of Elderly Services, 45 Washington Street in New Haven, Connecticut.
Chair, would you like us to proceed with our comments? Okay, I'll be brief. The respective leads will take the we'll do the tell you about the proposals on their sides. We have two proposals from CSA, one from Elderly Services, one from Office of Housing and Homelessness. I'll have the Director of Elderly Services go first, so I'll turn it over to you, Migdalia Castro.
Okay, our is short and sweet. It's a proposal for 22,418, and the activity is to provide transportation for special trips to the Big E, the Volunteer of the Year, the Holiday Hills, Pick Your Own Apples, and cover with the wellness plan to provide tashi and fitness classes to seniors. The part of ceramics and other trips we cannot do because it's basically this is what is approved. But with during COVID and the centers being closed, this will work perfectly. We're hoping that in the fall we can reopen the centers. We're just waiting for the numbers of senior population to get vaccinated.
Any questions from members of the committee?
Chair, may I, if it would be helpful, thank you, Chair. If it would be helpful for the committee as a whole, as they go through their process, it'd be helpful for them to say what page they're on. So we all can be on the same page as we going through the process. So it'd be helpful for us, so you know, to tell a page so we all can follow you. Okay.
For
Thank you.
Department of Elderly Services, it's page 11, and we're in the top line. Page.
Thank you for
And part of the request proposal is going to also be leveraged with other funding that we have helped in the years before, like the Black and Hispanic Caucus, the Philip Morris Fund, that provides the cooking, CDC Master Cooking Class for seniors, Thanksgiving for All, and the Caravera Management that provides a direct support to the Volunteer of the Year senior luncheon.
And
Thank
so
you.
just as a, sorry, as a point of reference, relating to the page number, if you do have the con plan budget book in front of you, Migdalia's description of her program is on page 70.
Oh, okay, thank you. Actually, 270. If everyone can just stay on mute because there's feedback and I can't hear. Thank you so much for the page number as well. Any questions to Elderly Services again? Okay, moving on. Ms. Velma.
Good evening, Alders. I was actually trying to find a page. So Allison, if you could tell me what page mine is on, because I'm not sure what page I'm on.
You're on page 74. You're the top one.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so just really briefly, since the pandemic, we've seen an increase in unsheltered homeless throughout the city. And one of the things that we've been working to do is to rapidly rehouse as many people as we can. And so the proposal before you is to be able to work with, to be able to secure a community health worker who would work to create a framework for outreach and education to help to connect the unsheltered homeless to health care, and also to services for housing. Also, that person would be working to help to connect them to harm reduction services as well as mental health services. And in addition, what makes them a little different from our regular outreach workers is that they would be working as a liaison between the city and unsheltered and our partners to be able to address not only the needs of the unsheltered clients, but also to address the needs of our constituents within the city. Too often we get complaints about encampments, so there would be a person that would be really focused on addressing those encampments, because we're seeing them more and more spilling into like the public right-of-ways and also encroaching on residents' property. So this person would really be working in conjunction with our outreach workers, but focusing a lot on being a liaison between the city representing our interests as well as the client's interests. Any questions?
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Oh,
Yeah.
yes, there is a question. Alder Winter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What is the plan when you say addressing the encampments? What do you have in mind when you say that?
So very often we have complaints, whether it's from one of the residents or Alder or someone else in the community. We have complaints, and so that person will work in concert with the outreach workers to address the complaints, to go out, visit the sites, and to really help to connect folks and fill any gaps. So sometimes what we have are people in encampments that may have mental health issues or substance use issues, and we would be working to connect them to services as well as working with the outreach workers to connect them to housing opportunities.
Thank you, Ms. George. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions from members of the committee? Okay, seeing none. Dr. Dalal, are you all set now? Perfect. Okay, you are dismissed.
Thank you.
Now, we will bring all of economic development. I'm not sure if LCI is a part of it, but we'll bring you on too. Join the fun. And as you all join, if you can just state your name and addresses for the record, and then Director Piscatelli, you can lead the way there.
Well, good evening. Thank you, Alder Brekeen, members of the committee, everyone on the call. I want to thank you for your time and interest in CDBG. My name is Michael Piscatelli. I'm the Economic Development Administrator for the City of New Haven, and I reside at 353 Summit Street here in New Haven. Joined by, you heard from Ron earlier about City Plan, but we're joined tonight both by our team leads from the Livable City Initiative and from Economic Development to talk about some of the most important programs we do in terms of program delivery and services into the community. I'm really appreciative that someone mentioned earlier the American Rescue Plan. As you know, from many years working on CDBG, this has been a constrained program. It is not adjusted for inflation. And we have struggled, quite frankly, to meet the needs both in our own program delivery, but providing services through the community partners. So we should all be encouraged and looking forward to those additional conversations to be more meaningful and go deeper into the work we do in all of our communities. And I say that in part because if you heard us on the general fund call, we are 1.4% of the general fund budget. So when you hear the presentations tonight, we're really appreciative of this committee's support of program delivery, particularly on the LCI side, which is our code enforcement group, acquisitions, Main Street, and then on the economic development side, you'll hear quite a bit about the success we've had on small business and entrepreneurship, as well as new efforts to meet the needs, emerging needs in the small contractor and construction space. So you hear from Kathy Graves and Lil Snyder, and I'll be available on the call to answer any questions as you go through each of the programs. I have no idea which page we are on, so maybe if Mr. Chair, if you could just help us out with which one you want to do first.
And I'll be grateful if Allison so happens to know.
I'd be glad to help. Just let me know whoever wants to start and I can let you guys know about the page number.
And as you go,
economic development's on page 61.
If we could, Kathy Graves is double booked tonight. If maybe we can take the small business initiative first, that would be great.
State your name and address for the record.
Kathy R. Graves, 257 Stevenson Road, New Haven. Good evening, everyone. As you know, we continue to pivot to meet the needs of new and existing entrepreneurs. Business ownership has been an alternative to the 9-to-5, especially during this pandemic. People are looking for no to low interest loans or forgivable loans and grants, and support services and technical support has really been key to help promote business and just keep them in business. So what we've done, we've pivoted, and I'm just going to highlight some of those accomplishments over the past year. Once again, we had to go from a in-person platform to a virtual platform, and we've incorporated SBA workshops and SBDC workshops, which has really, really been well attended. Our classes have been extremely well received by new entrepreneurs, but our real success this year is that we've been able to partner with McDougall Prison. In the fall, we graduated 5 inmates, and we've been recruiting inmates about 6 months out from their release date. So we had 5 participate, and we were just thrilled with the participation levels. This cohort that's going on now, we have an additional 3. So we're excited that we can work with them while in prison and when they come out, and I've identified some funding sources for them to help start their businesses. We started a partnership loan. We knew we needed to leverage funds. So we've worked with the Community Foundation for Greater New Haven and established a partnership loan. And that loan is a low interest loan of 4% up to $25,000. Now, the good news about this loan is that we're leveraging our $250,000, where 16% of it's used and the rest of it is community foundation. So if someone takes out a loan for $25,000, $4,000 comes out of our $250,000, and the balance $21,000 comes out of the community foundation. So we're really leveraging loans. To date, we've been able to distribute 27 loans, and we've saved 119 jobs. And these are all existing businesses that we've kept in business through this pandemic. We've had to pivot to a virtual marketplace. So over the holidays, we were able to film 22 small businesses where we would have normally been out on the green, and we have 2 or 3 days of shopping. Well, we were able to film them, give them videos, create video platforms if they didn't have a web platform, and people will continue to shop with them. Now, just an example of the success, Beauty Plus, under their previous website, they only had about 10 shares a month, maybe. Over that period, they increased it up to over 100 likes. So we are helping them market themselves, not just during the holidays, but on an ongoing basis. We've developed a CRM that we use for small businesses, new and existing. We collect our data electronically now, so we can stay on top of week to date, actually, daily, we can track the number of assessments that are coming in and all the demographics that go along with it. We've hosted several webinars, which we knew we had to do to support small businesses during this pandemic, SBA, SBDC, DECD, and the like. We've continued with our Goldman's 10,000 Small Business Program. We've had about 41 participants this year. Today we had 21 participants in the workshop, and we're going to strive to do that workshop every month, at least every month, from usually around the noon time, because we find that many entrepreneurs, and this is for the more seasoned entrepreneurs, they tend to take lunch breaks, and that's when we want to address them, when we know that they have a break. We've also had a webinar on SBA government contracting for our more seasoned businesses. We've had to pivot. We knew we had to pivot. We had to be innovative in what we were doing. And so far, these webinars have paid off, and they've been well received by the business community. So we're going to continue with that. We're going to continue our online programming. Maybe one day soon we'll be able to meet in person, but the virtual is working out extremely well. We'll continue to leverage our dollars as much as we can. We will continue with our online presence with the small businesses and videoing them and helping them grow and increase sales. And I appreciate your continued support in making this program successful. And we've reached every ward in the city.
Any questions from members of the committee?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Co-chair, I see no hands.
Oh, nope, it's on them. I'm not sure who wants to present next.
If we could, Co-Chair Wingate and Co-Chair Brackeen, if we could move now to Lil Snyder from our small contractor unit and talk a little bit about a new program to support the growth we're seeing on the construction side.
State your name and address for the record. And you are on mute.
Thank you, sorry. It's Lilia Snyder, 20 Griffin Pond Road, Branford, and I'm the program manager for the small contractor development program in the city, which is enforcing Chapter 12 1/4 of our Code of Ordinances. The focus of our program is to offer opportunities and support to small, minority, and women construction businesses. We also monitor the compliance of 12 1/4 in order to ensure that the requirements and the participation is there and is continuing through the entire project. When we started 12 1/4, our focus was city projects. It was city projects working with the department heads. We now have increased to, we are working on 12 1/4 is included in all our LDAs. 12 1/4 is included in all our tax assessment agreements, in all our facade agreements, in all our environmental agreements. 12 1/4 is included. Our workload has increased considerably due to the success of our program. We've realized over the years that including 12 and a quarter, into any type of assistance that the city is giving to a developer, a contractor. We should also include the requirements to include small minority and women-owned businesses in their construction endeavors. We have now, besides monitoring all the city construction projects that are ongoing, the boiler replacements, the roof replacements, the repairs that go on it, the ice skating ring. We now also have an additional 14 projects throughout the city through different developers and different agreements that people have received or developers have received from us. Enforcement, monitoring, and reporting are the key factors in a successful program. And currently, we only have 2 people. It's myself and a staff person working on all of these projects. And our request is to provide us with an additional staff person, additional support and training opportunities for the contractors, as well as some new programs that we're looking into developing. And so we're hoping that with the funding that we hope to receive, we'll be able to provide the additional services that have become so necessary with the work that is going on in the city. Our office has also become the go-to place if you have a construction question. If there's a contract, the questions that we get range from, do I need a home improvement license in the city of New Haven to work on a project, to what are living wages or what are prevailing wages? So our scope has increased, as well as the amount of projects that we are working on, and we're hoping to provide additional and better services with the funding that we've requested. Any questions?
Any questions for members of the committee?
Thank you.
Alder Winter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ms. Snyder. Could you talk more about what the additional programs you mentioned are planned?
Of course. Unmute. Okay. The different projects that come into the city reflect, they're all looking at new green, innovative approaches to dealing with construction. They're looking at new types of materials, prefab type of materials. The hospitals, the doctor's offices, the walk-in clinics all have new requirements because of COVID, because of all the airborne new diseases that have come up, all require new training and new type of certifications in order to work on these projects. So the first one that I'm hoping to start this year is training to get the certificate that would allow a contractor to work in a walk-in clinic, to work in a doctor's office. Even if they're doing something as simple as going in and painting the office or changing the doors, they all have to now be certified in this contagious disease environment. And it's a very expensive program. Your average small contractor, most likely we have found when we did a couple of surveys can't afford it. And so we're hoping to subsidize that type of training with all the new work that's coming up in our area with hospitals and doctor offices renovations, as well as all the walk-in clinics that have expanded considerably.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions for members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, Alders. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Lil. We can pivot now over to the Livable City Initiative. I think it's always important to recognize, in the CDBG world, these are housing and community development departments around the country. Many of the programs Kathy will talk about are related to things so much beyond housing and community development. It's the ground game around code enforcement and blight. So it's the service delivery and then the programs that we back it up out of LCI.
Good evening, Kathy Schroeder, Deputy Director, 170 Borman Road in East Haven. I'm going to discuss, we generally submit about 6 proposals. We submit a proposal for acquisition, which supports our housing development and blighted programs. And the acquisition this year, we're looking at 558 Winchester, which is leveraging our Thompson Winchester Phase 2. It's a blighted property, dead center of our Thompson Winchester project. We also put an application in for property management public, which is services our foreclosed properties in the city that the city takes title to. It's another anti-blight program initiative for that. It takes about 250 tons of trash. When we service about 173 properties. Then we have our commercial development Main Streets application, and that is providing their leasehold improvement program, and it does commercial relocation. It does rehab and redevelopment of commercial space. We move on to our public improvement, which is going to fund 506 Winchester's park improvements as part of the Thompson Winchester project. Then we have our code enforcement, which is our housing code and neighborhood specialist support program. And they've done about 2,200, had 2,200 blight referrals this year and 1,300 notices. And the housing code did about 6,600 inspections. And these all are leveraging our housing development investments around our neighborhoods. Then we have our residential rehab program, which does our projects that we're looking at is 177 Winthrop Avenue, the 596 and 598 George Street building. It also is a great backup for our residential loan programs, our elderly program, our ERAP program. LCI is looking at projecting about 414 projected unit development this coming year, 385 of them rental and 29 home ownership units. LCI uses CDBG as a support for our home funding and for our capital funding for our projects. Thank you.
Any questions from members of the committee? Alder Winter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much, Ms. Schroeder. I had a question about the acquisition budget. It looks like the amount the mayor's proposing is 385,000, but the amount requested is 50,000. Is that? Do you know if that is accurate or if something?
We have a typo there. We have a typo.
Okay.
Typo there, Alder Winter.
So that is supposed to be.
Oh man, I was all excited.
Okay, so it is $50,000. Is that?
No,
Yes.
the request is not 50. The request should have been more. That it includes the 385 includes some reprogramming funds.
Right. We actually reprogrammed about 950,000 from 2 line items that there was a lot of money in that we felt that could be better served in either other agency or other departments. So we did reallocate some of the 950 to acquisition.
Okay,
Great,
so
that's good.
last year it was funded at 50,000. but this year the request is for 385 and the mayor's proposing to fulfill that request.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much, Economic Development.
Thank you. Have a very nice night.
You too. I don't, staff. I miss, I guess that we should acknowledge missing Mickey tonight. I was gonna say Mickey. My question is, do we need to call for any members of the public to testify on this item right now? Is that necessary? Anybody?
Yeah, you should do it as a formality, sir.
Okay, thank you so much, Al. Are there any members of the public wishing to testify? Are there any members of the public wishing to testify? Are there any members of the public wishing to testify? Seeing none, the chair will now entertain a motion to close the public portion of this hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the portion of this hearing.
Hearing it moved, do I hear a second? Hearing it moved in second. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, abstention. We have now closed the public portion of this hearing. Discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I know you all have done this before, right? You all have done this before, but it's always something new, right? Right. We should go look at our packets. We should do our due diligence. Going from 50,000 to 385,000. So, there's a lot going on here. We should really look at, and I just urged, the committee to, they due diligence. This is just beginning. We got a couple of meetings. We have a meeting tomorrow. Look at your dates, as co-chair said, look at your dates, because we may have to throw one in another day. So I just urge everyone to, do their due diligence at the package, have your amendments ready, and so we can have a smooth transition. In reference to New Haven Housing Services, I'll reach out to Mr. Ron Gizzi about that, to see what actually happened with that. Want to belabor no more time, so that's Bill.
Oh, I definitely appreciate that. Yeah, the comments. I would add one note that if we could mute, that'd be great. One more note. You have received an overwhelming amount of information. Okay, this is, like we said, this is a different year, different times, and we're not wasting paper. We're going to be environmentally friendly. We are deputizing you all to take on a document, read through it, read through the evaluations, which I greatly appreciate that document, so that when we come in over the next few days, we're not missing something. Also, if you are noticing things, please tell us beforehand. I don't want to make a show of this process. I just want to be clear about that. We don't want to go there. So if you see any issues, please just tell us in advance. Alder Wingate or myself or even Ron or Allison or please tell us in advance. You are deputized to review these documents and to find any necessary information that you'll find pertinent to address in this process. As I already acknowledged, we are making do. We have lost a great staff member in Mickey, who was really, really great in terms of being that filter and that source. So we are reliant on many eyes and in this space. I saw Alder Edwards. Did you have your hand up there? Okay.
did, thank you. As you said, you're deputizing us to read our documents and catch things and ask questions. However, my ask of you, Chair, is to please try to help it become a user-friendly process for my eyeballs, please, because it does help, because we have so many booklets and so many documents and 1,500 spreadsheets that we're reading. It would help if there was an announcement made. We're looking at this document tonight, and I'm on page 600, 300, whatever. I think it's just for clarification purposes, and it's easier to take notes and figure out if you want to amend something or jot things down as you're going along and that department is speaking. That's my opinion, and that is my ask, and that is it.
Duly noted. I cannot actually say I can grant the wish because we didn't create the documents. So, so I don't know what
It's a shot, because it was very helpful when Miss Allison was able to say, okay, well, this department's on page 622. Boom, you're following it, you're noting it, and you're finding that mistake, that $385,000 versus $922,000 mistake with a $50,000 proposal.
And management and budget will jump in and help in terms of the booklet or anything else that you need. And obviously this is a new process for us digitally, so catching these errors or updates for us is very helpful, since they're tiny little numbers and we look at them all day and they start to look the same. So we appreciate the feedback, and anything we can do to help is what we're here for.
Yes, this is going to be an overly collaborative process, and they've lended their support during this time. Alder Winter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to Chair Wingate as well for your leadership in this process. To Alder Edwards's question about like which documents at what point, just wanted to confirm tomorrow night is hardware. Is that correct? It is hardware. Okay.
Yes.
And do we know if all of the hardware information is in the consolidated plan budget book? It looks like there's tables on pages 60 through 66 or 67, but I just wanted to see if we can get staff to clarify that so we can know what to look at for tomorrow.
That is the hardware section, starting on page 60 through 67.
Okay, that's super helpful. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other items that we feel need to be raised at this time about the process to make this helpful? Okay. Actually, I'm going to do something different tonight. I'm going to take a point of personal privilege. I don't know if others have any, but I just wanted, and I don't know if this has already happened or not, but I just wanted to take the time to acknowledge a colleague on the Health and Human Services Committee, Alder Sabin, on his scholarship towards the Truman Scholar. He's a Truman Scholar. I don't know what the history of that on the Board of Alders is, but boy, do I understand as an educator and has worked with many, many folks in Ward 1 over the years, that is truly an honor. And I just wanted to acknowledge you and your accomplishment, and even offer you an opportunity to talk about what that is and what that looks like, and what is that?
Sure. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. The Truman Scholarship is a national scholarship for students who are interested in public service, who are committed to public service, and it comes with an award of up to $30,000 for graduate school, and then networking opportunities and leadership training opportunities and stuff like that. So I'm very excited and humbled and honored, and thank you so much for your kind words, Mr. Chair. Really appreciate it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We on this board sometimes we get a little wild, but as the president pro tem says, we are family. Nonetheless, at the end of the day, past the politics. So I just wanted to take the time to acknowledge that being a huge accomplishment. You should not dim that light, carry that light. Any other points of personal privilege? I see the, co-chair. Yep. Okay, seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Hearing it moved, do I hear a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention. Have a great night.
See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
We have a double meeting tomorrow, folks. Health and Human Services.
Congratulations, Saban.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.